And Rick, we have a very special guest that is going to join us right now, talking about Alfredo Ortiz, who is the president and CEO of the Job Creators Network. Alfredo, welcome to Breitbart News Tonight.
Rebecca, Rick, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, Alfredo, you have an amazing op-ed in The Hill today, and the headline is, Trump is finally vindicated on tariffs. And we posted an excerpt of this on Breitbart News, and it went being shared like you wouldn't believe on our Facebook page.
Great. Great. Well, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's, I would love for you to just lay out your piece here, because this is, I think, so crucially important that people understand or come to understand what Trump's strategy was and why it was vindicated.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to do that. And again, thank you for having me on the show. I mean, I'd love to start off, first of all, with an incredible piece of news, which I'm sure you guys have all been talking about all day, which is the GDP number for the quarter, the gross domestic product, 4.1% growth rate, unbelievable. If you all recall, under the Obama administration, we were limping around with 1.5, 1.7, 1.8, and here we are, 4.1%. It shows, first of all, that the tax cuts actually work to bolster our economy and get more people hired. I mean, it's an amazing fact right now. If you think about it, there are 6.3 million jobs out there available and only 6.1 million people looking for it. So this is the first time in history that there are more jobs available than people looking for it. So first and foremost, what President Trump is doing for our economy is unbelievable. And I know there was a lot of conversation about the tariffs, and I kept reading and hearing from people. Every single person was saying, what is he doing? Why is he doing this? I just don't get it. Why is he putting these tariffs on? And, on the surface, I can see why people were asking the question. But as a business person, this is what I think people are finally understanding, is that Donald Trump is not a politician. He is a business person. In fact, it's really the first time in history, right, that we have a businessman president, in the White House, in the Oval Office. And what I think he understood all too well, like any business person, is when times are good in your business, right, i.e. our economy, that's exactly when you invest back into your business or back into our country. So he knew, I think, fundamentally, his gut of guts, that he was able to invest, that this was the time when he could take a little bit of an unorthodox approach by using tariffs, not for tariffs' sake, but tariffs to leverage, basically against our other trading partners to be able to bring tariffs down. President Trump doesn't want a country or a world where tariffs even exist. He said it back early in June. If he had his wish and his druthers, there'd be no tariffs at all. He would want true free trade. Right now, we have a supposed free trade system, but not really fair trade. And that's what he did. He made the decision to say, you know what, I'm going to use tariffs. I'm going to put them on the table to get people to negotiate these stupid and bad deals, quite frankly, that had been on the books for decades. And so, what I said, it really is no different than any business person out there who understands this, that says, you know what, that's exactly right. When times are good, I'm going to invest in my business. When times are bad, you just can't, right? You don't have the ability to do it. Did he know it may shave off a point or two, 0.1 or 0.2% off the GDP? Probably, and most likely he knows. But, so maybe we go from 4.1 to 4.0 or 3.9 in the next GDP. That's still pretty darn good and double what the Obama administration ever was able to produce.
Now, and you make an interesting case here that essentially by taking this opportunity right now to try to get some balance in these very unfair, trade deficits that we've been subject to, that he's really taking a short-term hit for a long-term prosperity. I think is what you're basically arguing here.
Yeah, that's right. And I make a little bit of an analogy, which I think we're all been there because we were all kids at one point, like a broken arm. Right? I think we've all been there, a broken arm, a broken leg, a broken foot or something. You need to reset it, right, so that it can actually heal correctly and really be able to, perform at its peak performance going forward. And I think very much in the same case, this was a broken system. And I think he knew he just had to reset it. And that there was going to be some pain. And, and this doesn't downplay because, on a macro level, this obviously sounds all really good. But there are real people out there we know, and I'm sure President Trump obviously understands, there are real people out there that are hurting, but I think that's why he's acting quickly. We already saw that he was vindicated with the EU almost immediately. With them coming to the White House and Donald Trump walking out of there.
Their entire economy is. I mean, they're a Vladimir Putin is a petro dictator, basically.
Right. Well,
and to take away their biggest monopoly is like hitting them right where it hurts. This is supposedly to be the president who was compromised by Russia. I mean, come on,
Right, absolutely. Well, and we all know the deal that the German chancellor did as well with Putin on the whole natural gas as well. So it really was on multiple levels. It was brilliant. But we know. It's obvious that the president cares for the American farmers and those who are being hurt. And so I think he wants to move quickly on it. And I think he basically is asking the American public, look, trust me on this, right? Give me a little bit of time. And frankly, what I wrote in here is that he really has bought himself that wiggle room as far as I'm concerned as a business person. I think he's bought himself that wiggle room. When you deliver 4.1% GDP growth, when you deliver business investment that rose by almost 8%, when you have the lowest unemployment in history, not only amongst general population, but amongst Hispanics, amongst Black, amongst Asians, amongst women. Again, more people. There are
willing to give you a benefit of the doubt
looking for jobs. Yeah. So let's give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, right?
Now, Alfredo, there's another point that you make that's really crucial, I think, in this piece, is you say that essentially now this is basically about almost creating a coalition to address China and China's practices. Their mercantilistic trade practices are way, way, way infinitely worse than anything that we saw with the EU. Talk to us about that, about what the next play is with China.
Yeah, well, China obviously is such a large trading partner, but really when you look, for example, at, what the World Trade Organization is saying, China's tariffs are nearly 3 times larger than the U.S. is putting on American small business exporters. And so it really is a competitive disadvantage for, overall. And so China has always taken advantage, quite frankly, about, with this kind of setup. And I think this is why it was brilliant. I mean, on so many different levels. And, we can talk about Mexico and Canada as well. Because, when you look at that, people are going, oh, my gosh, he's doing this with everybody, with the EU, with China and Canada and Mexico. Is he crazy? What is he doing? It's actually one thing I realized with President Trump, he understands who actually has the ultimate leverage. And I think what he fully understands is that the United States of America has the full leverage against all of these trading partners. And I think if I were Canada and Mexico, I'd be sitting there going, wow, if he's willing to do this with China and the EU, who are we versus them? We better get our act together and get to that negotiating table before we find ourselves very much on the losing end of this.
And proof of that is the newly elected Mexican president has sent really conciliatory notes toward the White House. And so we have now a Mexican president who is looking forward to doing a deal with Donald Trump because he knows that Donald Trump won't be pushed around, and he better be on the right side because he doesn't want to be on the wrong side.
Right, absolutely. And look, the other thing I think, Rick, that Donald Trump understands on this, China as a consumption market is an extremely large market, right? And so when you think about American small business exporters, they're all looking at China as a huge potential market. So, the more he works with this and gets these markets open, and frankly addresses the whole, aspect of, proprietary and licensing. I mean, they really are famous really for stealing trade secrets, right? Almost overall from a lot of our exporters here from the country. And so he's going at this, I think, in an incredibly smart way. I think the way a business person does, because at the end he has figured out that the United States of America has the ultimate leverage against all of these trading partners. And that finally, once and for all, we're going to reset it. And again, I know he understands that there are some people out there on a micro level that really are going to feel it. But I think that's why, for example, he asked for $12 billion in aid. And as much as I'm not a fan of aid, I'd much rather have trade. What he's saying, he goes, look, give me a little bit of that wiggle room. Let me adjust this once and for all so that we can have decades of prosperity.
You know what? I want to ask you about some of the critics that I think are pretty short-sighted, but I want to get your take on this. Just in testimony on Capitol Hill this week, U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer on Thursday, he was testifying at a Senate Appropriations Committee hearing, and the Democratic senator from Hawaii, Senator Brian Schatz, he just lit into Lighthizer. Basically was saying, it's completely stupid and crazy that the Trump administration is even trying to fight against China on trade because we're so disadvantaged. Because we have to abide by the constraints of a market economy against China, in their basically command and control communist authoritarian system. And Schatz said literally, "I'm saying we have to take a short-term view because we are responsible to our voters." And Lighthizer had an amazing answer where he said, so do you think that it's that we should always are going to lose to an authoritarian government, that democracy always loses? And he says, no, I just think it's stupid to pick fights with them.
Right.
And Lighthizer had a great answer, but I want to hear what your answer would be to say that. Oh, it's just stupid to even try. What would your answer be?
Well, I sit there and I kind of laugh because any time a Democrat says anything about the economy, I just have to laugh now. I mean, they're living in a bizarro world, some parallel universe, because supposedly, according to Senator Warren and Schumer and Pelosi, this was going to be Armageddon, right? Remember that? This was going to be Armageddon.
That's right.
The tax cuts, all this. President Trump was the worst thing that can happen to global markets and everything. And what do we have now, right? We have literally one of the best economies that is humming along that we've ever seen, right? We've got more people employed than ever. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? And so, frankly, I have to just laugh a little bit whenever I hear a Democrat talking about that. I mean, we all know, too, what they're saying, by the way, if they end up taking control of the House. They're going to repeal the tax cuts that have led to this prosperity. Senator Warren, of all people, is saying, hey, you know what? I think 50% is actually pretty decent. Imagine that, 50 cents of every dollar being taxed, being taken away by the government from hardworking job creators. That's just unbelievable, which, again, we know impacts the economy overall and jobs, especially, when you talk about small business owners. So, I mean, back to that question. I mean, it's laughable.
It's crazy.
They don't understand how the economy works. In many cases, many of these folks have never signed a friend of a check. We know that the first time in history that we've had, or in a very long time that we've had a business person as president. And one thing he understands is how to do business.
Yeah, you know what? I want to just thank you again for coming on the program. Alfredo Ortiz from the Job Creators Network. We hope to hear more from you on this show.